This video is going to be a film study look at Sam Laporta, the fantastic second-year tight end for the Detroit Lions, who unfortunately hasn't had as much impact as Lions fans would have presumed or wanted to see through 2 weeks. I think he's got 6 catches on 8 targets, 58 yards, no touchdowns, so not much from a statistical standpoint in terms of impact. I will say that his blocking effort is still at a high level. Sometimes he's trying to hit home runs on a couple of blocks, and I'll illustrate one of them here, and ends up striking out. But oftentimes he's just going for a single or a double, to use my baseball analogy, basically meaning I don't want to lose this block such that it destroys or interrupts the run flow, the concept, the track that the running back is on. I feel like the fact that his blocking is staying at a high level from an effort standpoint says a lot of good things. Number one, about his mentality and his focus. Number two, about what's to come. Meaning, first of all, he took the NFL by storm in 2023 as a rookie. 86 catches, 890 yards, almost 10 touchdowns, 72% catch percentage. I think that's coming. Maybe not 10 touchdowns, maybe not almost 90 catches. But you're talking about a guy who you have film of, and I'll show a little bit of it at the end from last year. Wins over the middle against zone and split field coverages and safeties, pretty much. And then wins on the outside against corners as well. Basically lined up as an X receiver. Pretty unique pairing, if you ask me, in terms of a guy who can block well at the point of attack and someone who can win on the outside. Can he get things going in Week 3 against the Cardinals? I'm going to have some previews out Saturday morning, perhaps late Friday night, on Arizona's defense. What I would do first in this video is talk about Laporta and some of the things that are and are not happening right now that perhaps did happen in 2023. So this is a 3rd and 2 last week against the Bucs. It's 12 personnel. Laporta down here to the boundary. He is obviously open. Goff throws the wheel to St. Brown. I talked about this in a video that I put out, I think, Thursday. Maybe I'll link that up in the description. You guys are welcome to check that out if you want. So I think that you're looking at a low percentage play here, a choice by Goff. So Jameson Williams running basically a pick rub here on the corner and then turning this into a pseudo route, not really. St. Brown stuttering for a moment, letting the pick or rub get there, and then the wheel up to the top side. Makes sense that you have a drag from the other side as the complementary route to it. I'm just a little surprised. I think Goff's timing has been sped up sometimes, and someone pointed out that it also looks like, it's difficult to tell here from this angle, that maybe the DB is holding St. Brown a little bit. Nonetheless, look, there are opportunities to get Laporta the football the same way you did last year in the same timing structure. And right now, for whatever reason, Goff seems to generally be going in other places, or the route design is such that it seems like Laporta's route is designed to clear out space for someone. That doesn't really apply on that first play that I showed you. This is an example of how physical the Bucs were. Number one, right at the end of the play when Goff is throwing the football. Also, I have to digress. This is an example that a 3-man rush can be effective in the NFL. I've received a lot of feedback from people in disagreement that a 3-man rush can have success. This is a 1st and 10. Ends up being a first down for the Lions because of a late hit by Diaby, the inside linebacker for the Bucs. Laporta, to me, isn't used enough on routes like this one. His length, his ability to make catches with contact. I think we saw some last year. It was a little inconsistent getting those routes to develop. This, to me, looks like we'd be better served with a route coming up here, but everything from a Goff perspective was reading down here to the bottom side of the screen. Vita Vea wins completely against Ragnow. I don't think the interior of the Lions offensive line has been doing this fantastic job of pass pro. I understand there's people out there who disagree. Underneath route to St. Brown, and this is where I want to talk about the nature of the rhythm of some of Laporta's routes. You basically can see when it's a progression or timing route, because from here to here, you get this slowed down version of Laporta because he's trying to get to a particular spot at a certain time. And so you've got the ball's already out to St. Brown. But later on here, you have this route over the top, over the middle to Laporta. It kind of looks more open than it is right now because that inside linebacker is reacting to it. Basically, there are times where Goff is looking to one side to try to encourage or influence a defender to go in a particular direction. In my opinion, he's looking down here now, making the read. I think he's trying to walk this defender down a little bit so that this later route to Laporta is open over the middle. You just have a lot of situations. I'm not saying that's what he should do. I'm trying to explain the concept to you as I understand it. There are a lot of times right now where other guys are getting the target, be it a deeper route, St. Brown on the wheel that was incomplete, the third down, or in this case, it's a 2nd and 1, late second quarter against the Bucs. In fact, this is the very next play. Laporta up to the top side. Really, it almost ends up being 4 to a side from a route perspective. You got the backside drag by Patrick from trips. Long setup on this one, my apologies. And Laporta's route is just crossing the face of this inside linebacker, basically trying to get to his inside shoulder to hold him such that the route to Tim Patrick over the middle is where Goff goes with the football, such that it is wide open. It ends up being a 10-yard gain on a 2nd and 10 that somehow created a 3rd and 1 thereafter, I believe. But I'm not saying he's used as bait or he's used as a distraction route, but there have been a number of times in watching the film here. There's nothing wrong with Sam Laporta. There's nothing wrong with him. There's many times where he's a part of the progression, or he looks like his route is just designed to open something else up. And this really here kind of describes or illustrates what the Rams and the Bucs have done a lot of through 2 weeks. And that is play zone defense. It's late second quarter here, so the dynamic has changed somewhat. Play zone defense. Make Goff read and throw the ball underneath and execute up and down the field. There have been some times where they've been able to do that. They get in the red zone, unable to score. Everyone's talked about it this week, of course. The red zone percentage, the touchdown to field goal percentage, that is a conceptual thing that many teams do. I will tell you the limited experience I have watching Cardinals film from 2023, and I think they have the same defense coordinator, they drop 8 a lot in coverage. Now, maybe they did that last year because of the specific threat that the Ravens offense was, but it's an inordinate amount of times. So moving forward here, late second quarter, Laporta underneath. I'm drawing this route, or I'm using this play after the second one to illustrate something to you. Laporta was up here to the trips on the previous play. He ran a route that was like this one. Basically a shield concept in the middle of the field such that Tim Patrick could catch it. Well, now St. Brown is here. Watch this safety, Whitehead, who played a spectacular game, if you ask me. Just jump this route from St. Brown. Teams are reacting to the Lions' routes, I think, quicker than last year. Give them credit. They've done their film study. They've done their preparation. And they understand the routes that are likely to flow from there. I think Ben Johnson's got to adjust. Whatever their self-scouting looks like, I'm not saying he's predictable. Ben Johnson ain't predictable, but there are times where these guys on defense are responding a little quicker than I think they should be. Additional to that, this is going to be to Laporta, by the way, over the middle. It ends up being a pass defense by Vita Vea. The offensive line has not played well to me. I consistently kind of marvel at some of the ratings that are out there. In here, I don't think Goff is comfortable. I just don't. 98 gets a quarterback hit. I think it's Gaines or Gainsey. And then 50 swims, just absolutely swims, Kevin Zeitler. And Zeitler's gone. And then is able to knock the pass down. I'm not saying that that type of pass pro occurs on every snap, that by any stretch of the imagination. I think Goff is a little uncomfortable back there, and it's having an impact. Well, he gets hit on this play, number one. Number two, Vita Vea tips the pass. It is clearly intended for Laporta. As an aside, watch Goff's helmet early in the snap just so you get an indication of what I think he's trying to do to these second-level defenders. He's looking out here to the sideline right now because I think he's trying to stretch this guy in this direction so that if he has to come back to Laporta or St. Brown, there's more space in the middle of the field. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. This is the ill-fated catch at the end of the second quarter or reception underneath. I think it's another example. Well, Goff, first of all, I believe is looking to the downside of our screen. So he's looking away from Laporta, who's up to the top side of the screen. Laporta's going to run that slower release that I think is timing oriented. So I think his route is bringing him into the middle of the field, but at a certain time, because they're trying to let this defender hedge or move over with St. Brown to clear that. And Goff just never gets there. He takes St. Brown underneath. I'm not saying he's wrong. That's one thing about quarterback evaluation that I hesitate to do, because we don't know what was said to him pre-huddle by Ben Johnson. It may have been said, hey, if we get a particular zone, kind of looks like cover 3 to me, if we get a particular zone, throw it underneath and we'll live with it. It does seem to be an inordinate amount of times that the ball was being thrown underneath so far. I don't know what the yards to the ADOT, I guess average yard or average depth of target is, but to me it's another example of you got an underneath route and then Laporta later on in the progression running an in-breaking route that occasionally at times Goff was able to stick in there last year between or layered between a second-level defender and a third-level defender. We don't have the end zone angle here, so hopefully I'm saying that in a way that makes sense. My point is there are, I would say, probably 5 or 6 times overall that fit this description here, whereby if Goff holds onto the ball a little longer to throw it, he perhaps can stick the throw in there on the backside to Laporta. But related to my breakdown from the last play, I think he's got some fears or anxiety about what's happening up here. I'm not saying it's been terrible O-line play. To me, he seems a little pressured. And from the more I watch the film, the more strongly I hold that opinion that the interior of the offensive line, right guard, center, and left guard, is not playing to the level that other people expected going into the year and that other rating services are giving them credit for. That's all I'll say about that. So this is week 1. We will show some week 1 film here. This is 3rd and 7. Some of the targets for Laporta are, this particular one is not actually a high percentage one. I'm glad that Goff throws it from the standpoint of trying to give him an opportunity, but you do have a safety here who's in the middle of the field. It's a 3rd and 7. You want him to throw the football. You want him to give someone a chance to make the play. I think at some point, these are the routes that have got to be thrown. Maybe not this exact play here, but the middle of the field does seem a little clogged up to me, a little stuffy. You're more than welcome to let me know. Coach, that's too general an observation for me. I try not to get into those things too much, but there are a lot of throws in the middle of the field where there's a lot of defenders around, and in zone coverage, they're forcing Goff oftentimes to throw it underneath. In this case, he tries to basically throw a jump ball over the top. Laporta gets a hand on it, unfortunately able to come down with it on a 3rd and 7. I think that was early in the game against the Rams. A designed delay route here against the Rams from week 1. Rams are in their typical nickel set. You got full flow by the running back, Montgomery, into the flats, into the boundary. Laporta basically is the second man through, second man into that area. So there's a lot of obfuscation here by Ben Johnson to get this accomplished. St. Brown in motion and then goes back to the field, number 1. Number 2, Montgomery goes through and then runs the wheel route to pull one of the inside linebackers. Laporta blocks initially up top. You will get the end zone angle here in a moment. And then bleeds back into the boundary along the same path that Montgomery took pretty much. I'm talking about here, post-catch. He basically meets the point of intersection with Montgomery's route. It's about the 23-yard line. It's a cool design. Ben Johnson has a tendency to do that to his left. Down here, I'd say inside the 30, somewhere in that range. Conceptually somewhat similar to Brock Wright's game-winning touchdown against the Jets late in 2022 on the road. I don't think you have to do this much for Laporta to get him open. He's not one of those guys that needs a lot schemed up. But to me, I'd like to see a little bit of this early Sunday afternoon or late Sunday night, I guess, when they play the Cardinals. Get him the football. Get him moving, because you need as many pieces of the offense contributing, and they certainly have a lot of talent between St. Brown, the 2 running backs, Jameson Williams. Those guys have all had impact so far. Sam Laporta, at least related to my expectations of him, his impact has been suppressed. 3rd and 5, another example, if you ask me, of a team playing zone after making it look like it could possibly be man. Now there, and there looks fine to me in terms of man. 43 is a hybrid safety guy who can play some inside linebacker at times in the Rams looks. That's Johnson, by the way. And here he's the guy who comes downhill After they've made it look like man, post-snap, it ends up being zone. Again, it's a 3rd and 5. So you can see a cover 2, 5 under umbrella. Laporta's the guy sitting down here. And you could say, hey, if we have more time, we want to come back. We want to come back to this here over the top of the second level. There ain't time. It's not there. There's, I don't want to say large scale issues, but in my opinion, a lot of Goff's struggles, inconsistencies so far through 2 games, negative moments, whatever phrase you want to use to describe it, are related to pressure in his face or around him such that he has to throw some of these underneath, and he's not getting time to throw as many of those. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. If you guys have issues with that statement, feel free to let me know. 2nd and 15 against the Rams. Laporta underneath. There's a big difference when you watch his routes versus the timing patterns versus him getting a release trying to get open. So this is a design. This is a route that they run a lot with him. I call it Z under. Almost ends up looking like smash with a number 2 receiver. St. Brown disappears. Actually, it's a little bit more of a drag, but you got that route there, and then Laporta underneath here on the under route. There's just a big difference in the speed and explosiveness of some of his routes depending on what the concept is. If it's a timing release, you oftentimes see him in like 3.5 gear. I don't want to say 4th gear, really don't want to say 3rd gear, but that's my comparison. Now, his blocking, in terms of effort, has not suffered. Just watching probably 8 or 10 run plays where he's at the point of attack, he's hitting a lot of singles, meaning he's not expanding some. First of all, I think this is the edge defender for the Rams who's like 275. That used to be 295, but he's not going to expand that edge defender. This is the overtime drive. I think the second play of the overtime drive after the reverse to Khalif Raymond. He's hitting a lot of singles, if you ask me, as a blocker. This one ends up looking a little bit weird, the way the Lions block it. Basically, the very next play, same concept. I think he goes for a home run. I think he ends up with his chin and his face over his toes, meaning too far forward. And he's going for a home run because of the angle of his upper body is too much out in front of him and not behind his toes. There's no power really there. He's like leaning out over the top of his center of balance, center of gravity. And I think it's Verse is able to just discard him. And then when Montgomery breaks a couple of tackles, Verse is actually the guy who comes back and gets involved in tackle. I'm not saying it's Sam Laporta's fault. Jared Verse is stud. He's a big, strong dude. I'm actually pointing out that I think Laporta's blocks have been a net positive for them this year at a time when he's not contributed as much as a receiver, and I think that's a good thing. It's an F counter play where they're going to motion one tight end across. They've been running the ball to this side a lot in week 1 and 2, and then it ends up being F counter. Zeitler's going to pull and kick, and then Laporta is going to wrap up to the second level and basically try to create a seam. It's a down kick scheme. Thought there was more there than we got because one of the inside linebackers folds back from underneath. I think it's Reeder who was involved in damn near everything. And then finally, touchdown run by Montgomery. This compressed alignment by the wide receiver finishes off the Rams. What's Laporta got to do with it? Well, by formation, by alignment, Ben Johnson has added this receiver in here to kind of widen up that edge defender. I think it's Verse once again. And Laporta is trying to just kick him out, hold him in this direction, such that Montgomery has the option of going inside the C-gap. It's a short yardage play. You're not trying to get 6 or 8 or 10 yards of it. That was Young, by the way. So that's great. He's continuing to block. That's a positive. But what we want to see, I think the Lions need some playmaking skills. They need him to be targeted on some of these intermediate routes and make plays, whether it's a 35-yard gain like this one against Man on a third down last year, or a touchdown like you saw against the Raiders at home. The Lions need some of this to loosen the defenses up. You're welcome to let me know if and where you have seen data about how often teams are playing. This is, by the way, last year's film. It looks like this year's film. That's Carlton Davis III up here, and that's Josh Reynolds. So this is last year's film. Laporta's actually going to win to the inside against Davis on a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. This is what you want to see to loosen defenses up. How much man versus how much zone are they getting? It seems like more zone to me. I think at this point, I have about 55 pass plays saved up from the Jared Goff video that I put out Thursday, and then this one. I'm a big fan of Sam Laporta's. What he did last year in week 1 against the Chiefs, I did a film study video after that one. I was like, this guy can catch the ball. He lines up receiver, and he blocks. I still have all those same beliefs or thoughts about his skills and how deeply he can impact the game across the wide spread as a blocker at the point of attack, as a tight end, taking on safeties and inside linebackers, and then occasionally lining up as an outside receiver. The Lions and Ben Johnson got to figure out how to unlock him. I think this offense needs that. They've got the big play element with Jameson Williams, the threat of it, at bare minimum, the threat of it. He does have a 50-plus yard touchdown catch against the Rams from week 1. This offense needs him, and they need to be more balanced. I hope that they're able to look more smoothly. It's going to be an interesting dynamic if Arizona still plays the same type of defense that I saw last year against the Ravens. I will have a film study video out to preview that game on Saturday morning, perhaps late Friday night, depending on people's willingness to watch it that late at night, previewing the Cardinals' defense against this Lions offense. I've watched more Lions offensive film this week than pretty much anything, and it just seems like on individual plays, run plays, pass plays, there's a little bit of bleed out such that the efficiency, instead of being 97% or 98 or whatever our perception of the Lions' offensive efficiency usually is, it's at 89 or 90, and you get small little cuts on every single play that end up causing the offense to bleed out at the end of a possession, end of a drive, or the end of a game. You guys have to let me know what you think of the points I made overall here during this video about Sam Laporta, the plays that I picked to try to illustrate how I think he still can have an impact. There's situations where if Goff gets a little bit of more time, or if he feels like he will get more time, that he could get to that second or third read being Laporta on that in cut that I think I showed and illustrated twice. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look at Sam Laporta projecting forward in week 3 and beyond, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content have more reach.